Hi, Usha. Usha, you there? Usha?
Hi, Minal. Mangala is here.
Hi. You've not got home yet?
No, I'm still in the taxi. But I've got
Usha
the
too is in the
thing.
car, but I want to say something to her. They know the recording is already on. It shouldn't be on now.
No, it shouldn't be on. Yeah, it shouldn't be on.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the LitClub program. Please mute your audio and stop your video for better connectivity. And if anyone has named themselves Popo or any such name, please rename yourself. And please give yourself your original name. Thank you. Over to you, Meena.
Yeah, I've stopped my video, yet I can be seen.
Please don't talk anymore. You're being recorded. Shall I start? Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I am Meenal Sagar. Warm welcome to all of you for a program hosted by the Asiatic Society of Mumbai Club, of which I am the chairperson. Thank you for joining us today as we celebrate Gustave Flaubert's bicentenary together with the Department of French of the University of Mumbai. It is so good to see in the audience many former colleagues and students apart from friends. I thank our speakers for today. They have graciously accepted our invitation. Dr. Jayant Dhupkar, the translator of the novel Madame Bovary into Marathi, will be in conversation with Dr. Ujjwala Joglekar. They are both well known to most of you. I will tell you a little more about each of them in a short while. The ongoing pandemic has made people engage with literature again, and this has been one of the very few happy consequences of the terrible period we have traversed recently. Reading a translation can be quite different from reading something in the original language. It can be challenging since each language has its own culture and set of conventions, and we need to train ourselves to open our hearts and minds to different modes of thought. Most importantly, translation aims to bridge the gap between the Indian reader and the classical French literature. Hence, we are grateful to scholars like Dr. Dhupkar, who have embarked upon this arduous and exacting. The novel Madame Bovary, published in 1857, is a seminal work of literary realism. It is a veritable chef-d'oeuvre, masterpiece, and one of the most influential works in the history of literature. Flaubert established what is considered in the literary world as a modern realist narration, thereby influencing leading exponents of literary realism around the world. He strove for an accurate depiction of common everyday life. The regional setting, the provincial town of Rouen, is important as it applies to his realist style and social commentary. Such was Flaubert's ruthless devotion to the style and aesthetics, that it can be said that there is a time before Flaubert and a time after. He had truly perfected the art of writing. He believed in and pursued the principle of finding le mot juste, the right word, which he considered as the key means to achieve quality in literary art. I quote Vladimir Nabokov, stylistically, the novel is prose doing what poetry is supposed to do. And Milan Kundera, not until the work of Flaubert did prose lose the stigma of aesthetic inferiority. Ever since Madame Bovary, the art of the novel has been considered equal to the art of poetry. The novel has been translated into multiple world languages. Often there have been several translations of the work in the same language. As a critic has said, and I love the image that he's using, it is the ever translation, and the spokes are crowded with foolhardy expeditions, which I don't think will be the case in our Marathi translation done by Dr. Jayant Dhupkar. Before I invite Dr. Vidya Venkatesan, head of the Department of French at the University of Mumbai, to moderate the discussion, I must tell you a little about our speakers today. Please be prepared for a longish list. I won't enumerate every single thing that has been done by Dr. Dhupkar, but I really must tell you a little about him. So his PhD thesis was Lanali Semiotique du Théâtre de Kalidas, and he has taught at Baroda, Goa University, and finally at CFL, which is now English and Foreign Languages University in Hyderabad. So he retired as professor of French from FLU, Hyderabad. He has published translations into English and French as well, but the main body of his work is translation into Marathi. Currently, post-retirement, he is a practicing translator, and he has translated many works after Madame Bovary, which was translated into Marathi in 1993. So may I just call out a few titles of the works he has translated into Marathi. So after Madame Bovary, you've got a novel of Georges Simenon, Assia Jaune, François Sagan, Bonjour Tristesse, and then a Marathi translation of the first Inuit novel translated into French as Le Harpon du Chasseur. Then Le Journal de la Femme Squelette of Gilda Gauffier of Guadeloupe. Marathi translation of Tamasuk Kwamak's autobiography, Je veux que les Inuits soient libres de nouveau. And then several translations of Camus, Yourcenar. I'll just read out a few titles. Okay, and there's also the Marathi translation of Umberto Eco's Comment le petit pois a sauvé la civilisation occidentale. Albert Camus, most of these stories are from L'Exil et le Royaume. The story Lot, La Pierre qui roule, Anatole France, Leslie Wood. I'm calling them out in chronological order without giving the dates. Camus' Infâme Adultère, and finally La Peste, the Camus. And in November 2019, I think he has published the entire collection of short stories contained in L'Exil et le Royaume. Apart from that, he has in press a Marathi translation of Désert of Jean-Marie Leclésio, and in preparation, apart from many other things, Roland Barthes SZ, which will be an annotated translation of selected passages. He has also written books, articles on translation theory, on literary translation, and I really cannot call out all this. You will have to get in touch with him and ask him to give you a more detailed data. So then we have Professor Dr. Ujjwala Joglekar, who is professor and head of Department of Foreign Languages at the Savitribai Phule, Pune University. She has done her thesis, PhD thesis, on a comparative study of argumentative connectors in French and Marathi. If that's not impressive enough. Okay, so let me just give you her parcours, her trajectory. She was initially a lecturer in French at the University of Mumbai till 2008, and that's when we really got to know her, and we're so happy about that. Then she moved to Pune University, where she has been working since May 2008, and currently she is professor and head of the Department of Foreign Languages there. She has written academic articles in Marathi, in a review, in a book. I won't tell you the title just now. Also, she has given lectures on nationalist literature in Marathi at the University of Sherbrooke in Quebec and the Université Québécoise à Montréal. She has also spoken on Marathi literature at the University of Montreal and at Sherbrooke. Another lecture on the genesis of the Marathi language. What's very interesting is that since 2016, the French section, which she's heading, is actively involved in the subtitling of films that come out of Bollywood. There is an association called So Bollywood in the city of Montpellier in France, which holds a film festival of Indian films since the year 2009. In 2016, Ujjwala's team, their team from Pune, prepared the subtitles of the film Pyasa by Gurudutt, and all the 14 songs were translated by Ujjwala. She was invited to talk about Pyasa and Gurudutt during the festival. Since then, 5 films subtitled by the French section have been shown in the Festival of Montpellier, and also there is a full paper on subtitling in their MA program. So we have a learned and able interlocutor to be in conversation with our prolific and eminent translator, Dr. Jayant Dhupkar. Thank you very much, both of you. And now over to you, Vidya. Thank you for moderating this program. Over to you, Vidya. Ujjwala, you'll have to unmute yourself, as will Jayant.
Namaskar. Delighted to be with you today. And I don't know if I'm really required because both Ujjwala and Professor Dhupkar are very good speakers and are both translators. So what I would probably do is just open the discussion and then we'll play it along. For those of you who are not familiar with the background, I'm sure there are very few people like that because I can see it's a largely Francophone audience. But in case, just give me a minute to tell you that Madame Bovary that we're going to talk about today, along with Les Fleurs du Mal de Baudelaire, are 2 books against whom there was a case in France. They was not just censored, but they were banned because they thought that Gustave Flaubert was promoting or at least saying it was quite all right that if you were bored with your husband, you could go ahead and have an affair. The case ran and it had nobody less than Ernest Pinard, the great vice counsel, talk about it. And in fact, reading the judgment is itself a fantastic experience, not just for any legal person, but for the French, which is beautiful. But that's not what today is all about. Today is all about translation. So may I invite Ujjwala and Professor Dhupkar to tell us a little about what was it to translate Madame Bovary, and Ujjwala, you who read it, how did it go? You speak French and you love and know your Marathi. So would you tell us something about Professor Dhupkar? What made you choose Madame Bovary besides the fact that it is one of the main works of fiction that any Francophone would and should read?
Okay. Good evening to all. It makes me quite nervous to speak in a language which is not mine, which is not my working language. I mean, I would have preferred to speak in Marathi or French, but then
exactly same here.
As the situation would have it, I have to speak in English. Why I decided to work on Madame Bovary? Well, that was not my choice. It was a choice given to me, suggestion given to me by Aniruddha Kulkarni, the proprietor, manager, whatever you call him, of the Continental publication, or Continental Prakashan in Pune. When I had just returned to India, that time after my PhD, I returned to India, and within some 1 or 2 months, I contacted him, and we discussed for a long time. By the way, it will be nice thing to bring to your notice that he was an Elphinstonian. He came he came for his masters to Elphinstone.
Yeah,
so I can see that you can imagine that times teachers in those days, Rajadhyaksha for Marathi or I don't know who other were there that time, because anyway, that's what the thing happened. And Aniruddha was a very well-read person as regards European classics. He later on wrote on Ibsen. He wrote on Shakespeare. He wrote on Wordsworth. From Wordsworth, he took a very good inspiration to go to ecology and environmental studies. So all those things were in the air all the time that we used to talk. So I can imagine his enthusiasm for Madame Bovary, and he said, "Why don't you take it up?" I said, "Well, let me go ahead." And I was quite novice in those days, and so I started working on it on a half sheets of paper, writing on one side and all sorts of things. And I took the draft, very shabby manner to him. He said, "Does anyone give a manuscript like this? You have to prepare." And later on, that took a long time to prepare the first draft, second draft, third draft, and then 2 copies, 3 copies for publication, vagara, vagara. So all that sort of thing went on. So that is how Madame Bovary came into Marathi. Not that Madame Bovary was not known to Maharashtrians earlier. Before I took it up, I remember to have read in Pune library. There's a Vishrambag Wada. There was a library which is now being dismantled and taken elsewhere. Two books which referred to Madame Bovary's adaptations in Marathi. I think it was done by Truso Joshi or somebody like that, and one was given name Pap, and another the title of the another one was Malti. So anyway, that was you can see very well that the thrust of the adaptations was entirely moralistic and in fact judging Emma Bovary. Thought brings the thought to my mind why Nasi Phulke, who was very much the romantic author of Marathi in those days, didn't think of doing something with Madame Bovary, but that's Nasi Phulke's misfortune that he didn't come to this book. So the book, the manuscript was given to him, to Aniruddha Kulkarni, and then I don't know how often he went through that or whatever it is. And the book came out much later, about 5-6 years later on. Till that time, I was getting all sorts of taunts saying that, "Oh yes, we hear that you are working on Madame Bovary. Oh, we hear that we are working on Madame Bovary." It came because Ketan Mehta brought out his film Maya Mimsa, which went to Cannes Festival. And of course, Ketan's film is an exquisite, excellent adaptation of one can do with Flaubert, Madame Bovary. Though the film was appreciated for the Oze scenes with Deepa Sahi and whatnot, but then that is the very minor part of the film. The dialogues, the music by Ruzanath Mangeshkar. This one, Shah Rukh Khan's one of the early films, but then who was the one who played Deepa Sahi's
Farooq Sheikh.
Farooq Sheikh's excellent low-profile role played by him. The fumbling husband, that's a it completely lost. That's parallel absolutely to Shah. And then Paresh Rawal was there, and Dr. Sriram Laghu was there. And very well situated in that Haveli sort of attitude, local by Ketan Mehta. It was excellent film. And I'm lucky enough that must have seen the role of the relationship between the two, Ujjwala.
No, I just wondered whether Like you had already finished translating that, or
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
yet to come and you were kind of inspired by the way it was treated there? No.
No.
Yeah.
Book
Okay.
was with him.
No.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
the
yeah.
book
Okay.
came out the
No,
same year.
because you were going on about the film so much,
About
so
the
that I thought that it was
translation and
has to do
adaptation.
with your
Yeah, that one
translation.
thing will
Yeah.
may come somewhere or the other. That
Hmm.
translation and adaptations are not so
Yeah.
close, tight opposites. There is always some adaptation which will keep on happening. Anyway, so the book was ready, and the day, the year the film came out, Anirudh also brought out the, the book, and that was, and I remember that it was very well received also. I mean, people who had not read, nobody referred to the earlier two adaptations, but 2-3 letters that came in the paper. And there was in those days there used to be one newspaper which used to publish the sale of books, and that showed that those 3-4 months, Madame Bovary was selling almost 70-80 copies per week.
Wow.
So it was quite a big sale, and I mean, I'm very happy that the book sold well. Then the question was, of course, that was Anirudh's idea that there should be comparative literature and all the universities should be reading this, and the idea that there are major French classics, Le Rouge et le Noir, and those things should be coming slowly. I mean, Maharashtra Sahitya Parishad had those Maharashtra Sahitya Sanskriti Mandal had that plan of translating European classics into Marathi, but that it never took off. But in my Madame Bovary came from that point of view into Marathi. So this is how Madame Bovary came into Marathi.
Very interesting. Ujjwala, you obviously read the original Ujjwala, but you must have known people who read the Marathi first before they probably tried to read this thing. Is it what is the reaction, Ujjwala?
No, I don't think I know other people who have read Marathi, and I myself discovered it when this proposal came up. Because I had read it and then somehow I had not read it. But it was a good occasion to discover, and I must congratulate Dr. Dhupkar for the amount of work he has put in an age where there was no computers, and even if there was no Devanagari, he could not type and all that, and so all those manuscript versions he had to prepare, and this book, yes, it is so big. I mean, for those who have not read, it has 3 parts, and first part has 9 chapters, second has 15, and the third has 11. So altogether 35 chapters. And it is okay when you go for a just a resume of the stuff. The narrative part is very little, but the book is so rich in description, and he has worked a lot on all such aspects. And at the outset, I want to congratulate him for that. And when I read the Marathi, initially I did not, take the French version alongside. I thought, let me just read it as a reader who doesn't know French, and he wants to, discover it, how it will go. And then the cultural elements, I have certain questions regarding that to him. Well,
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, shoot off.
Yeah,
That's
sure. Yeah.
exactly what we're looking
yeah.
forward to, Ujjwala.
So, sir, first of all, I wanted to ask you, how long did you take to translate? How did you go about it?
Well, I don't remember exactly how many. It certainly was not done in 6 months' time. It was.
No.
It has gone more than about maybe 3-4 years.
Sure.
But I mean that's very normal. I mean when you translate, it's only the sorry to say that the teachers of translation, they believe that translation can be done very fast, and literary translations particularly because so much of loss is
Oh, yes.
nobody bothers about it. But the commercial and technical translations, they can go really fast, but that's not
And it
my
cannot
cup
be.
of
Yeah.
tea. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not my taste at all, and I wouldn't really go in there. I have done translations. I've waited for some word to come for more than 6 months, because if you don't get that word, you are not going to give the footnotes to the book, because that spoils the whole literary aspect of the book.
Yes.
The whole thing has to come together, and that it ça vous travaille les tripes. It turns your stomach. That keeps on happening. Yeah, it is it's normal to happen, because you are looking for that word, and if you don't use that word, you are going to spoil. You are going to be unjust to the author, and you are going to let people make a mess of it. I can give you examples of whatever little experience I've got of translation, because there are major translations. I mean, this is what translations I have done, in fact, are nothing compared to the real challenges of literary translation. I mean, those of you who are in French literature, say translating Raymond Queneau or George Perec or something like that, those people who work on the form, that's beautiful things to happen. I like George Perec's novel, where the E letter is completely absent. If I want to do something parallel to, or even in Indian context, suppose we took various major authors like Sanskrit literature or Marathi literature, the same problem will come. That's the typical problem of literary translator. That we don't go. Recently, 1984 of George Orwell was translated second time in French. Because there was earlier translation second time. Why second time? Because that was felt that the double language is no more valid in 21st century. The earlier version of double language is no more valid, because Soviet Union is no more the same, etc., etc., which is very true. Okay, in the same way, I don't. Professor Ashok Kelkar's paper, where he talks of Baudelaire's 7-8 translations. I mean, I will be happy to see that somebody translates Madame Bovary saying that, okay, Jayant Dhupkar's translation was good 25 years ago, but today it requires a new version.
That makes me ask you one question, that if, like, when you revisit your own translation,
yes,
is there something that you would have, written
absolutely
differently? Can you say, and why?
But for example, look at one thing. When I was translating Madame Bovary, of course, Madame Bovary remains in the same situation of 19th century, middle of the 19th century, post-revolution. So that period doesn't change. But our people have changed. Our readers have changed. The Marathi that I was writing also had changed. I wouldn't write that sort of heavy Marathi today. I mean, some of the words which I feel like changing today, there are some things I was noting down. I don't remember whether I have noted down or not. But then some of the structures I will change. Some of the sentences I will change, even if that time it will be, I can be blamed of not doing justice to the Flaubert's style. Flaubert's typical long sentences with a galoire that repeat, the rhythm of the internal rhythm, etc. I won't mind doing that, because today's SMS type of readers.
No, I mean, if in fact what I appreciated in your translation was, like, the sentences are fairly long and it reads out well. It has come out well in most of the cases, well, and it in fact tells ones that Marathi is equally rich and equally capable. And so just because people have changed their style of expressing, the people would come to discover literature and they would expect a good style. That should not be a problem. But the problem is about how you perceive what the Marathi reader would understand or not understand, and the way it is perceived. Now, of course, I mean, there are cases where it's an excellent translation, and I would try not to go into too much of linguistic jargon, first of all, because I think either in French or Marathi, I'm not sure I know all that jargon in English. But when it comes to giving an equivalent, not every language has the same way of putting it. Like the French is known to be more specific compared to English. And in your translation, in fact, I found very apt translations where you did not hesitate to give a specific expression that would elaborate what is said succinctly in French. But that was required. For example, where when she says that je suis vertueuse. And so this is a place, and if time permits, Vidya and I are going to read out certain excerpts, and that is about the first excerpt. Maybe Vidya, can we read it?
Yeah, let's do it. No,
Huh.
I was just about to suggest
Yeah.
that. So I start with page 78, 79, Ujjwala, that you had first selected.
Yeah, that's what.
All right. You stop me wherever you like, because
Yeah.
this seems to be almost 500 words.
Yeah.
This is
But it
Madame
takes 3 minutes, the Marathi version, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Madame Bovary, the Gustave Flaubert, the book that was banned and which had a model case against it. I begin. Léon ne savait pas, lorsqu'il sortait de chez elle, désespéré, qu'elle se levait derrière lui afin de le voir dans la rue. Elle s'inquiétait de ses démarches. Elle épiait son visage. Elle inventa toute une histoire pour trouver prétexte à visiter sa chambre. La femme du pharmacien lui semblait bien heureuse de dormir sous le même toit. Et ses pensées continuellement s'abattaient sur cette maison, comme les pigeons du lion d'or, qui venaient tremper là, dans les gouttières, leurs pattes roses et leurs ailes blanches. Mais plus Emma s'apercevait de son amour, plus elle le refoulait, afin qu'il ne parût pas, et pour le diminuer. Elle aurait voulu que Léon s'en doutât, et elle imaginait les hasards, les catastrophes qui l'eussent facilité. Ce qui la retenait, sans doute, c'était la paresse ou l'épouvante, et la pudeur aussi. Elle songeait qu'elle l'avait repoussé trop loin, qu'il n'était plus temps, que tout était perdu. Puis, l'orgueil, la joie de se dire « je suis vertueuse » et de se regarder dans la glace en prenant des poses résignées, la consolait un peu du sacrifice qu'elle croyait faire.
Uday, SOS.
Alors, les appétits de la chair, les convoitises d'argent et les mélancolies de la passion, tout se confondit dans une même souffrance. Et, au lieu d'en détourner sa pensée, elle l'y attachait davantage. S'excitant de la douleur et en cherchant partout des occasions. Elle est irritée d'un plat mal servi ou d'une porte entrebâillée, gémissait du velours qu'elle n'avait pas, du bonheur qui lui manquait, de ses rêves trop hauts, de sa maison étroite. Je continue.
Yeah, well,
Ujjwala, we can hear you. We can hear you. You have a problem with the audio?
yeah, Ujjwala can't hear as it appears. What page was it?
What am I? Usha,
Yeah, I was muted. Sorry.
It's okay.
I hope you can hear me.
we can hear you very well. We can hear
Very
you.
clearly. Okay. What page
Okay,
is it?
I have
Ujjwala?
Don't worry, we can hear you.
There is a problem with my speaker.
No, there's no problem.
No, we can hear you, Ujjwala.
We can hear you.
But can
The
you hear
host had
Vidya?
muted me. Am I mute, unmute? But I
No,
can't hear.
you're
I should
not
be able
on
to
mute.
hear
You're
now.
not on mute. You're not on mute.
We can hear
Okay,
you.
don't worry, you're not on mute.
We can hear you properly.
But can you hear what Vidya is saying?
नाही हा माझा व्हॉल्यूम मी मोठा केला पण I can't hear a thing. Earlier I could.
Oh dear.
You know.
I think something has been connected.
No, everything's fine.
No, Ujjwala.
Ujjwala,
No problem from our end.
with your audio. No problem from our end.
She has to set it right.
Just right, I have no idea. Hello.
Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
yes. Yeah, we
Can
can
you
hear
hear
you.
Now?
me?
Yeah.
We can hear you,
I
Ujjwala.
can't hear you.
Oh dear. There's obviously a problem your side. Maybe it will come back. Is someone there to help?
I can't hear you.
Oh dear.
You put it on chat box, Mrs. K, then maybe she'll read you.
No, she can hear me. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Maybe she should leave it. Yeah, good idea. Shariba says you should
Okay,
leave
I'll
and
try that.
rejoin.
I'll leave and rejoin.
Yes, leave
Yeah.
and rejoin, please.
In the
Till
meantime,
then, Vidya can
Professor
carry
Dhupkar,
on
may I-
with the lecture.
Yeah. I'll
Vidya
just
can
I
carry on with the lecture and we'll admit Ujjwala again.
Yeah.
I've got a little paragraph left, and Professor
Ah.
Dhupkar, if we can't, for whatever
Yeah.
reason,
Which page is this?
this is 78, 79, you know, when Leon leaves.
Okay. 77, 78,
That's
79.
supposed to be virtuous, that passage. I'm on the last part.
Okay.
So if you can get your Marathi translation to, and you can see where we are.
78, 79, right?
Oh, 78, 79 in French.
But I don't know exactly.
No, probably 78, 79 is not what we should go by, but by the Leon part. Never mind. You know what? I'll just complete this and then we'll
Okay.
continue with our discussion, and Ujjwala will come in. She knows all about this. She's one or two. So I continue. Ce qu'il espérait, c'est que Charles n'avait pas l'air de se douter de son supplice. La conviction où il était de la rendre heureuse lui semblait une insulte imbécile, et sa sécurité là-dessus de l'ingratitude.
Okay.
Pour qui donc était-elle sage? N'était-il pas, lui, l'obstacle à toute félicité, la cause de toute misère, et comme l'ardillon pointu de cette courroie complexe qu'il a bouclé de tous côtés?
Okay.
Is Ujjwala with us, sir? Are you going to read?
But I'm looking for the.
Okay, then let's continue with our discussion, Professor Dhupkar.
Yeah.
For example,
She's there.
He's there. Oh,
She's
great.
there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ujjwala.
but you may have to
Done.
unmute her, Usha, because you have to make her co-host again, Usha.
I have done that. And I
Okay.
can only ask her to unmute. I can't unmute her.
Ujjwala, can you
I
hear?
have unmuted. Now I can hear you.
Oh,
So I
perfect.
guess that the first excerpt has
Yes, Ujjwala. I've read it.
Has been read.
Yeah, will you read it
Okay,
now?
yeah, fine. So,
Yeah.
the
Ujjwala.
Marathi version has been read or not?
Yeah, it has been
No.
read.
It has been read. So I wanted to just draw your attention to that
The
fact
Marathi
that.
version has
Not
been
Marathi.
read.
Oh,
Not.
French has been read.
okay,
So
fine.
can
Then
you
I
please
will read it.
the Marathi?
Then I will
Yes.
read it. Okay. We are talking about the first excerpt only.
Yes, Leon.
Which page?
Yeah.
Leon ne savait pas.
What page is it, Ujjwala?
Let me tell you. 104.
Okay.
Okay. So, निराश होऊन आपण जेव्हा तिच्या घरातून बाहेर पडतो तेव्हा आपल्याला रस्त्यावर पाहण्यासाठी एमा आपल्या मागे उठते हे लिओनला माहीत नव्हते. त्याच्या जाण्या येण्याकडे ती लक्ष ठेवून असायची. तिच्या सूक्ष्म निरीक्षणातून त्याच्या चेहऱ्यावरचा कोणताही बदल सुटायचा नाही. एक कल्पित कथा निर्माण करून ती त्याच्या खोलीला भेट देऊन आली. औषध विक्रेत्याची बायको आपल्यापेक्षा अधिक भाग्यवान आहे कारण लेओ ज्या घरात राहतो त्याच छपराखाली तीही राहते असं तिला वाटायचं. त्या घराच्या पन्हाळीत सुवर्णसिंह खानावळीतली कबुतरं जसे त्यांचे गुलाबी पाय आणि पांढरे पंख भिजवायला सतत जात तसे तिचेही विचार त्या घराभोवती सतत घिरट्या घालीत. पण आपलं त्याच्यावर प्रेम आहे हे जसजसं तिला अधिकाधिक जाणवायला लागलं तसतसं ते आपल्या नजरेला पडू नये आणि कमी व्हावं म्हणून ती ते दाबून टाकायचा प्रयत्न करायला लागली. पण त्याचबरोबर आपलं प्रेम लेओच्या लक्षात यावं असंही तिला वाटायचं आणि कोणकोणत्या प्रसंगी त्याला त्याची जाणीव होईल याची ती कल्पना करत राहायची. हे सारे विचार अंमलात आणण्यापासून तिला कदाचित आळसाने किंवा भीतीने परावृत्त केलं असेल, कदाचित विनयशीलतेचाही त्यात भाग असेल, पण नंतर आपण त्याला नको तितकं दूर ढकललंय, खूप काळ उलटून गेलाय, साऱ्या गोष्टी हाताबाहेर गेल्यात असं तिला वाटत राहायचं. मग कधी कधी आरशात आपल्याच प्रतिबिंबाकडे पाहत माझं पाऊल वाकडं पडू दिलं नाही मी, असा अलिप्ततेचा आविर्भाव करण्यात होणाऱ्या आनंदामुळे आपण करत असलेल्या काल्पनिक स्वार्थत्यागामुळे तिला आनंद व्हायचा. शरीराची भूक, पैशाची हाव आणि वासनेची विषण्णता या साऱ्यांचे एका वेदनेत रूपांतर झाले आणि तिच्यापासून अलिप्त होण्याऐवजी ती तिच्यातच अधिकाधिक गुरफटत जायला लागली आणि तीच वेदना अधिकाधिक मिळत राहील याची संधी शोधत राहायला लागली. पानात मीठ न वाढलेला पदार्थ किंवा अर्धवट उघडे राहिलेले दार पाहून ती चिडचिड करायची. आपल्याजवळ अमुक एका मखमलीचे कपडे नाहीत म्हणून ती दुःखी होई. आपल्याकडे नसलेल्या सुखांबद्दल, आवाक्या बाहेर असलेल्या आपल्या स्वप्नांबद्दल आणि अगदीच चिंचोळ्या असलेल्या आपल्या घराबद्दल तिला खंत वाटायची. आपल्या मनोवेदनांची शारला काहीच कल्पना येत नाहीये हे पाहून तर ती आणखीनच चिडायची. आपण तिला पूर्ण सुखी ठेवतो आहोत असा शारला जो पुरेपूर विश्वास होता तो म्हणजे मूर्खपणे त्याने आपला केलेला अपमान आहे आणि आपण सुखी असल्याची त्याची खात्री म्हणजे आपल्याबद्दलची कृतज्ञता आहे असेच तिला वाटे. कोणासाठी ती एवढी समंजसपणे वागत होती? तिच्या साऱ्या सुखांच्या मार्गातला धोंडा, तिच्या दुर्दैवाचं कारण तोच नव्हता का? तिची चारी बाजूंनी कोंडी त्यानीच नव्हती का केली?
Well, that
was
is,
the
I'm very happy that.
So I wanted to say that yes, the flow is good, and especially I wanted to draw your attention to that word virtuous. Je suis virtuous has been translated as माझं पाऊल मी वाकडं पडू दिलं नाही, which is a very good, in the context, and that is what, going beyond the words and doing justice to the text. But then there are certain facts that I wondered, like, why you could have, but you did not pay attention to. Like the very first time when Charles goes to cure Monsieur Rouen, that's Emma's father, and it's a situation that he's there and the maid is helping out prepare the kind of something to hold on, and the daughter, that is Emma, is also preparing some cushions in the sense something, again a gauze, you can see a gauze kind of thing she is trying to prepare and all that. So over there I'll just read out that sentence. Tandis que la servante déchirait des draps pour faire des bandes et que Mademoiselle Emma tâchait à coudre des coussinets. So their servant has been translated as Nokrani. Well, in Marathi, Nokrani is not the word, it's like Hindi rather. Yeah. And Mademoiselle Emma has been translated as Kumari Emma. So like Kumari Emma, when you say, it is more like a état civil. Whereas in French, Mademoiselle is also the appellation, vocatif. And Mademoiselle, so for the servant can also call her Mademoiselle. Charles, who has come, as for the first time as a stranger, visitor, doctor visiting the sick person, and the father can also call her Mademoiselle. So Mademoiselle over here is more of an appellation. And so it could have been said something like, I don't know, Dhaktya Malkin Bai or something like that. Or just Emma. Dropping Kumari would also do. Or if you wanted to, then you should have thought of something that would be, used by all these persons. And,
See, what happens,
for 1 minute. 1 second. I have another point of view. You can address both of us together. Ujjwala, in my reading, I'm not familiar with the Marathi, but when a servant says Mademoiselle Emma, it is with a certain pretension that the family claims that,
of course.
So she's Mademoiselle Emma. She's not Mademoiselle, her father's surname attached to her, but she's Mademoiselle Emma. So whereas when we say Kumari Emma, it becomes like you're saying, like you would put it in a passport or something like that.
Exactly. It is état civil. So
how would you bring in this further, sir? How would you, Professor Dhupkar, how would you bring in this other element of how would the master's daughter be addressed or be referred to by the servant working in the house?
It will be Bhai
So
Sahib.
what?
Bhai Sahib, Tai Sahib, those
Okay.
things will come.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I didn't think of those days at all because perhaps I was
No,
very
over
close to the.
there, nobody is using it, but the fact remains that Mademoiselle is a vocative.
Yeah,
You can use it.
yeah.
And therefore, something was required that would go in that direction rather than the état civil. Yeah.
Very true. I mean, but I'm not very sure. I mean, I perhaps, of course, let me frankly admit also that in those days, perhaps this Tai Sahib, Bhai Sahib thought never came to my mind. So the error must have occurred because I was very close to the French text, and which remained in the second version, second revision, something like that. So this is eventually that will be one of the things I would like to correct.
Yeah.
These are the things which I would like to bring it to a more contemporary, because even today Tai Sahib Vagare will be very rarely utilized.
Yeah.
Unless it is really remote village state or something like that, or very typically Sardar, that sort of situation which we don't accept anymore. So that will be one of the explanations of this error which has crept in the translation.
Yeah.
Which I think that this will be one of the explanations. That the question which I didn't speak is that which did not address is that how I went for translating. The first version was very much down to earth, very close to the translation, very close to the original text. Then second version, which came, little distance and filling up the words in a very proper Marathi surrounding, context, and which suit the French words, taking them to Marathi and putting them in that situation. And then also maintaining the syntactic structures.
Yeah.
Then third one was far away. That's how one keeps on going from one text to another, one version to another, one brouillon to another, one draft to another.
Yeah.
So that's the way it must have happened. And I don't know how this remained, so it remained. That remains. That also brings me to another remark. I must say that that also happens to the people, the authors of the books. Because I remember I must have told this incident, Ananda Devi and her Subha and Shubha in, I think it is Ujjwala Draupadi. She's using both the words, Subha and Shubha. And when she came to Hyderabad and we were talking, and she said, Sevu ki abhi tumhe error damo text. I said, yes, this was, because I was teaching that book. And then I asked her, so do you plan to change it? She said, forget it. It's gone, it's gone. so these sort of things do happen. Leclésio we are talking about, he's using the word chronometre. Now, chronometre is a typical word used in the history of horlogery, watchmaking and something. When the French started using the big clocks on the platforms, they used to, the flipping type of parts. So they were the chronometre. Now, he's using the word pendule and showing on the platform of this desert a chronometre. So pendule is the one where the pendulum takes place.
Yeah.
And chronometre is the other one. Now, can we say that Leclésio doesn't know or does not want to pay attention to his? No, we have to submit ourselves to his whims and superiority or whatever it is. So these things do happen. I'm not anyway trivializing my error or something. But what you are saying, Kumari was certainly a maladress. Is really a maladress, and that should have been removed one way or the other.
No, but Professor Dhupkar, don't you think we are every translation actually, as a translator, we're just working on draft after draft after draft,
Absolutely.
and suddenly at one point the publisher says stop.
Enough of it. Absolutely.
So I don't think it's an error. I just think that if you were to redo the translation, you do it differently because
absolutely. This Nokrani thing is really harassing me quite a lot. But then in those days, I was I don't know how it came, because my influence of Hindi also was quite remote, and it shouldn't have been. But then that's all.
No, but the fact that you were not in a band linguistic of Marathi also is may have
Also,
had something
yes.
to do with it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So because I'll be talking more of the representation of the cultural words. Some are good and some are I don't
Not so
know.
good.
Yeah. So there is talking about Emma's wedding, Mademoiselle Rouault s'occupait de son trousseau. So trousseau is basically her small bag she would carry with her, and that has been translated as Emma आपल्या रुखवताची तयारी करत होती. So it's, yes, at the same time some things very specific, and as we know, if we go really by what rukhwat is, then there are certain things that are edible and perishable, but there are other parts that are decorative and pieces, and a girl is also trained to do all that silai kadai and all that. So that way, rukhwat was an interesting word, and Emma is known to have been doing it, so that was an interesting translation.
Can I? One thing.
Hmm.
The word Truso is a very interesting. That brings to my. During my long stay in France, I also attended. I had a very good connection with families, and it happened that I was involved in. I mean, I took a busload of French people, my age, for a trip around Liechtenstein, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, and back about say 15, 20 days in Auberge de Jeunesse and something like we stayed. So some people became later on very good friends of mine, and I attended a marriage of two of them who were my travelers, co-travelers in the. So when we were thinking of giving the gift in France, on any general departmental stores or something, very specific shops, they write list the mariage. List the mariage is actually where you can go, because that's where the shops they are selected by the couple who is going to get married, and they have prepared the trousseau. That's what they call the trousseau. And they give you the shopkeeper gives you the list. Okay, these are the items they have chosen. If you want to give something beyond, this is what you can give. According to your budget, you can get. So finally, that whole thing comes to the day of wedding, and that's why the trousseau comes. This is exactly what Rukhwat, I mean,
exactly.
all the things that go, cycle and scooter and Godrej cover, all those things. So these are the things which happen. So, of course, not a certain level of marriage in India, Maharashtra, but that's what Truso does happen. So that's what the Truso was in my mind, and it really came in that way.
Yeah. But in that same context, you have said what? Lo resta 16 heures à table, that you have said tabbal 16 तास पंगत चालली होती. That really doesn't go, because when you say pangat, first of all, people sit and eat and they don't move. I mean, that is not how a wedding feast will go. In the Western world, where people move freely. That doesn't happen, especially when it is a pangat kind of thing. Whereas you in the next part you said दुसऱ्या दिवशी जेवणावळी चालल्या. So त्यामुळे शाही लग्नाचं जेवण किंवा जेवणाचा सोहळा असं काही म्हटलं असतं तर ते जास्त बरं झालं. नॉट शाही, सॉरी, जेवणाचा सोहळा जर असं म्हटलं असतं तर पंगतीच्या ऐवजी, कारण त्यांनी म्हणजे वेगळाच अर्थ वाचणाऱ्याला वाटतो, आणि that doesn't represent the reality at all in the novel.
Okay.
But sir, I come in here with another question, Ujjwala, if you'll allow me.
Yeah, sure.
Now certain cultural markers, which I think Ujjwala also will soon be taking up. The reste à table and pangat.
Yeah.
So to what extent does a translator cater to the cultural framework of the target language? And to what extent are we expected as translators to remain faithful to the original? Is it important that the reader understands first and appreciates later the cultural nuances? Or is it important that the text travel as closely, as faithfully? Now, whatever faithful means, because les plus belles sont infidèles, as they say in French, the most faithful, the most beautiful
Yeah.
beauty, or beautiful women here in this case, are not always the most faithful. But let's leave that sexist comment out. I'm just looking at the concept of a faithful translation. So what is faithful, and how do you deal with cultural markers? Is it going to be the host language, or is it going to be the original language? What is your take on this, Professor Dhupkar, and of course then Ujjwala?
Well, I have a very broad outlook look out for that, because as a comparativist, because basically translation is comparatism, and also as a poeticist, as somebody who does with works with literature, and you are yourself literature and also comparative communication. This is fundamentally literature, or anything is a basic point of communication. Now, what I am speaking at this juncture, speaking in a language which is not my first language, which is not second language, whatever it is, and I can communicate, like they say in the army code, reservoir sank to sank, receiving 500%. Okay. Now, in literary artistic translation or artistic communication, the text is not so flat. It cannot be some monolithic. It cannot be some consistent throughout. There are ups and downs in the text itself. There are ups and downs in the text itself, because the subjective involvement of the speaker, author, is uneven throughout. When he says I, when he says etc., we don't know what exactly it is meant, to what he's referring to. Now this, we have to make it out from the text that he's talking about. That's why the closeness of a text, the text is closed from all sides, and that's why it becomes a that's why it becomes a text. Otherwise it will continue like life. Narrative texts are always closed. The I's dimensions are exposed in the remaining part of the text. Now this, when we transfer from one language to another, whether all those ups and downs can be reproduced with that in the equal dimensions or not is the question. Take the simple example that Ujjwala was bringing out to Pangat, Jevnawal, Jevtana uthaयचं नाही. You don't get up from when you are eating, because we also have got the idea of that, ushto, we don't leave the plate just like that. We don't once again use the same plate. All those things are involved when we talk of food. So the communicating maximum is what the translator can aim at. Maximum. Now, in order to make up whatever the loss is possible, see, Umberto Eco has these two very important words somewhere, I think, sur-traduction and sous-traduction. Sur-traduction is where you are putting too much of meaning in that. And this happens also when we blame somebody, saying that you are reading too much of what I say. Don't put the words in my mouth. This is exactly what happens. On the other hand, when somebody is trying to say, okay, what he's trying to say is, no, I'm not trying to say that. You are trying to put something else in my mouth. So this question is typical of communication semiotics. Eco was a semiotician. I was doing semiotics for a long time. And this is what comes into picture when it comes to translation. Virtuous, and I also have another example when Charles says, ma femme est un ange. Now, un ange, in Christian is a masculine word. Ma femme, my wife is an angel. Well, they have translated Maji Baiko Gunachi Khan. Maji Baiko Gunachi Khan. Now, this is Gunachi Khan is typically Marathi. Now,
Yeah.
going to Khan, then are you going to? So all those meanings can be discovered, dug into that. This is doing sur traduction, sur interpretation. This is a typical Ecoian looking at meaning process. Translation is the meaning process. Translation, and like you rightly said, that the publisher at one moment recently in publishing La Peste, 1 week before he comes out the book that is with him last 3 years and says, Dhupkar sir, this is some problem, so rewrite it. So luckily I could do that on my computer. If it was to be done 15, 25 years ago with the handwritten script, I don't know what I would have been forced to do that. So these things are normal to happen in translation, literary translation. So this is what the generally things happen. Ujjwala, you have
No, yeah. True, but the thing is, when it comes to translation, we have to look at two things. One is the fidelity, and the other is intelligibility. And intelligibility, if it goes, in some other direction, and it kind of confuses the reader, that is something to be avoided, in my opinion. And especially when we are talking about how many people had come for the wedding? 43. 43 people had come for the wedding, and the जेवणाची पंगत 16 तास चालली, and when it is not the way पंगत goes. That's why I was a little apprehensive about this proposal. But yes, it varies from case to case. In this case, I think that is something that could have been avoided.
It's a very, very good example. Ujjwala's this noting down the people who came, because there's a beautiful, there's a beautiful paragraph, chapter before that, how many people came, how they came, etc. It's a very beautiful thing. And as a realistic novel that we are talking about, these questions have been important. One of the questions which was asked is that when Emma died, how old she was. Because if you are talking of realistic novel, then we should be knowing this is typical Balzacian realism. Madame Vauquet's in La Pension Vauquet, how many people are staying there and what are the relationship? This becomes almost a George Peric's novel in the La Vie Mode d'Emploi. The other question that, okay, Emma Bovary has these love affairs, but then she doesn't talk of contraceptive. Once again, it's a very, very concrete, direct, down-to-earth realistic novel. But realistic question, but those questions don't come. We have to also think about that period. Look at, there are 2-3 major scenes of La Bonne Bouffe, the eating place. La Obésar is one.
Yes.
Madame Bovary, Emma's marriage is one. Okay. At the end, we have got this whole drinking session between Home and Le Bournisien in the church. Okay.
Yes.
Otherwise, there's not much of it. Also realize that this was a novel written in the post-revolution, where the things are very unsettled, because that's what the whole message we get in the speech that the representative of the king or whatever that he comes for the comice. He keeps on talking about that. And Rodolphe keeps on asks Emma, have you taken your passports? So the going from one place to another requires this sort of situation. So number of people is not going to be the criteria. I'm not talking of the post-COVID or that's not the situation, but then the idea is that this is how in fact, the first marriage of Charles, with the first Madame Bovary, the woman dies, we hardly know anything about it. It was a marriage fixed by Charles' mother, because that woman is a widow and she's going to bring lots of ladots, and she's a well-settled person, and then she dies. So there's hardly anything to be talked about. We are going to talk about this, or Flaubert thought of talking about it, because she comes with a particular background. Madame Rouault, Le Père Rouault has this background that he is going to do this thing for his daughter. And then that is the surrounding in which Emma Rouault was getting suffocated. So Charles, Le Père Rouault is very happy to give away his daughter. She was not useful in any way. She was not helpful in any way. She has been chased away from the convent because she was putting her priorities very entirely different. She was not following the convent code. So this was the situation. So that was the extravaganza that happens in his in her life. Okay, so this is the background against which this Jevnaval takes place.
Yeah.
And there at the end, within the first day itself, Charles is becoming very intimate with her. He takes her out, and he's very he's showing off his affection for her.
Yeah. Okay.
But Ujjwala, I would like to draw the attention of the audience to the specificity of the number 43.
Yeah, yeah.
I think for a translator, God is in the anywhere, but even more for a translator, God is in the detail.
Absolutely.
Because it is from the number 43 that you then question Pangat,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And then you put it in a cultural context. So as translators, I think writers are probably less attentive to detail.
Very
and
true.
as Jenny Pinto once told me, he said, once you've translated a novel, you know that better than the author himself. So don't go back to him for everything, because he'll probably be surprised that this escaped his attention. And I'm not saying Flaubert would not have thought of 43, but that from 43 came the questioning of the use of Pangat. So I think the importance of details, that's what a translator does. As somebody said, a translation is looking at a Persian rug from the behind, and then you see all the thread work, and then you say, okay, so this is where the thread, this color begins, that's where it ends. Oh, this is going across. So I think somewhere the translator is, we've always thought of translation as in terms of faithful, because I have a problem with that word. But actually what it's doing is deconstructing and reconstructing.
Exactly.
So he takes the text apart, right? And then he puts it together, which is how it becomes a transcreation. The author is the original point de départ, the starting point, and then the translator takes over, so to speak, and transcreates. He's a painter, like I heard someone say, he's a painter looking at the same landscape, but he has a different palette. So he's going to paint it differently. It is the same landscape, but how he sees it and what palette he has is going to make all the difference.
Yeah.
Tell us something about your experience, Ujjwala.
Actually, I thought the question was being addressed to him, and I was looking for other instances of translation. I was not.
Okay, would you like to, shall we do another reading, Ujjwala?
Yeah, why not? So now we are going to the second part, where we are going to talk about her relationship with Rodolphe, when they were like, Rodolphe has started getting bored of her. So it's that part. Yeah. So she will first. Yeah.
D'ailleurs, elle devenait bien sentimentale. Il avait fallu échanger des miniatures. On s'est coupé des poignées de cheveux et elle demandait à présent une bague. Un véritable anneau de mariage, en signe d'alliance éternelle. Souvent, elle lui parlait des cloches du soir ou des voix de la nature. Puis, elle l'entretenait de sa mère à elle et de sa mère à lui. Rodolphe l'avait perdu depuis 20 ans. Emma, néanmoins, l'en consolait avec des mièvreries du langage, comme on eût fait à un marmot abandonné. Et même lui disait quelquefois, en regardant la lune, « Je suis sûre que là-haut, ensemble, elles approuvent notre amour. » Mais elle était si jolie. Il en avait possédé si peu d'une candeur pareille. Cet amour sans libertinage était pour lui quelque chose de nouveau, et qui, le sortant de ses habitudes faciles, caressait à la fois son orgueil et sa sensualité. L'exaltation d'Emma que son bon sens bourgeois dédaigné lui semblait au fond du cœur charmante, puisqu'elle s'adressait à sa personne. Alors, sûr d'être aimé, il ne se gêna pas et insensiblement, ses façons changèrent. Il n'avait plus comme autrefois de ces mots si doux qui la faisaient pleurer, ni de ces véhémentes caresses qui la rendaient folle, si bien que leur grand amour où elle vivait plongée parut se diminuer sous elle, comme l'eau d'un fleuve qui s'absorberait dans son lit, et elle aperçut la vase. Elle n'y voulut pas croire. Elle redoubla de tendresse, et Rodolphe, de moins en moins, cacha son indifférence.
Thank you. So I'm going to read this passage, what she just read in French. There's only one thing, Chandra, c'est la lune, which is femina, and la mer. So there, that is an obvious mistake which anybody would correct. That is त्या दोघी नाही, Chandra and तुझी आई. And interestingly, he has kept the word bourgeois as it is. He has not translated. Now let me read the passage.
What page you are, Ujjwala?
167.
Okay.
And first two lines of 168.
Okay.
शिवाय ती अधिकाधिक भावना विवश बनत होती. एकमेकांच्या छोट्या तसबिरी तर त्यांनी एकमेकांना दिल्या होत्याच. एकमेकांच्या केसांच्या बटाही त्यांनी कापून घेतल्या होत्या आणि आता तर एमा लग्नात घालतात तशी एका अंगठीची मागणी करत होती. आपल्या त्रिकाला बाधित मिलनाची निदर्शक अंगठी. बऱ्याचदा ती त्याला संध्याकाळच्या घंटेच्या निनादाबद्दल किंवा निसर्गाने दिलेल्या हाकेबद्दल बोलायची. नंतर ती स्वतःच्या आणि त्याच्या आईबद्दल बोलायची. रोदोल्फची आई 20 वर्षांपूर्वी वारली होती आणि तरीही एमा त्याचे टाकून दिलेल्या एखाद्या मुलाचे करावे तसे अंजारल्या गोंजारल्या शब्दांनी सांत्वन करू पाहायची. इतकंच नव्हे तर कित्येकदा चंद्राकडे पाहून ती म्हणायची, मला नक्की वाटतंय की चंद्र आणि तुझी आई तिथून वरून आपल्या प्रेमाला संमती देत आहेत. हे सारे असले तरी ती किती सुंदर होती. अशी निर्व्याजता असलेल्या फारच थोड्या स्त्रिया त्याला लाभल्या होत्या. चचोरपणाचा अभाव असलेल्या प्रेमाचा अनुभव त्याला नवीन होता. त्यामुळे आपल्या सवयींवर त्याला बंधन घालावे लागत होते. एकाच वेळी त्याचा अभिमान आणि त्याची विषयासक्ती चाळवल्या जात होत्या. जरी बुर्जवा विचारसरणीमुळे त्याला एमाच्या भावनोत्कटतेचा तिरस्कार वाटत होता, तरी मनातल्या मनात त्याला ती भावनोत्कटताच मोहूनही टाकायची, कारण तिचा केंद्रबिंदू तो स्वतःच होता. आपण कोणत्याही परिस्थितीत प्रेमपात्र राहणारच अशा खात्रीमुळे तो निसंकोच बनला आणि त्याचे वागणे पालटले. पूर्वीचे तिला आसू आणणारे ते गोड नाजूक शब्द आता त्याच्या बोलण्यातून कमी कमी झाले, तसेच तिला बेभान करणारी सशक्त आलिंगनेही. एखाद्या नदीचा प्रवाह तिच्याच पात्रात मुरून जावा त्याप्रमाणे ज्याच्यात आपण बुरून जातो आहोत असे तिला वाटायचे. ते प्रेम हळूहळू विरून गेले आणि तिला त्याच्या पायाचा तळ दिसला, पण त्या पाण्याचा तळ दिसला, पण त्यावर विश्वास ठेवायला ती तयार नव्हती. दुप्पट उत्कटतेने प्रेम करायला तिने सुरुवात केली, तर रोदोल्फ आपली भावशून्यता लपवायचा प्रयत्न कमी कमी करू लागला.
What can you say in the place of bourgeois? We still don't have any word for it.
No, we don't. Yeah, that's what. But somehow, what is that bourgeoisness that he is not? He doesn't want to associate himself with. Somewhere, if it had come, because this is only remark which goes well for a French reader, but it is not, very clear that is. So तिच्या ह्या मग काय म्हणायचं, कनिष्ठ मध्यम वर्गीय का काय म्हणायचं, कारण हे असलं स्वप्नरंजन हे कसं म्हणायचं म्हणजे.
See, bourgeois is a quite
because he is far well off than this family.
He is far well off.
पांढरपेशी. कोणीतरी इथे आपल्याला सांगितलंय की पांढरपेशी हा शब्द वापरावा.
जाई म्हणते. ओके.
या पण पांढरपेशी, इट हॅज टू डू विथ पेशा. पांढरपेशा दॅट इज मोर लाईक व्हाईट कॉलर. पांढरपेशा कम्स टू दॅट व्हाईट कॉलर, whereas she is not a working person. But पांढरपेशा वर्ग, yes, you can say in that. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
yes, please.
So yes, Pandapeshi is something white collar, but I have also read it in terms of just the taste that is acquired and which is very bourgeois and which is very used as Pandapeshi. At the same time, I also think that bourgeois right now, maybe 25 years ago, that word would have been pretty alien maybe to the people. But right now, at least in the crowd that I have heard and spoken, bourgeois is a pretty common word. And I have also read it in many, many Marathi articles as well. So I think it would not be a very alien word right now, but maybe 25 years ago.
In fact, I do agree with that, you know. I was thinking exactly that you could easily use the word bourgeois in today's world.
एक दुसरा शब्द उच्चभ्रू असा एक शब्द पण वापरतात.
उच्चभ्रू रादर रोडॉल्फ होता, ती नव्हती. तिच्या मे बी जाणीवा उच्चभ्रू होत्या, परंतु तिची बॅकग्राऊंड उच्चभ्रू नव्हती. आणि हा जो ही तफावत होती तीच तिला आवडायची नाही.
Thanks, Jay.
Shall we now open it to questions so that we could have an even more interactive session?
Yeah, sure.
Rita Kalbagi Singh Samruddha Parivaratil. Very good. Good suggestion.
Rather type it. If you.
Who is taking questions?
No,
Vidya will read the question.
Vidya will moderate that, but I think let everyone unmute themselves. I think it will be much nicer than putting questions in the chat box.
Yeah, while asking the question, because when everybody unmutes, there is an echo.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what Vinal means.
Okay, we'll go with that.
You need an echo, Jayant.
Yeah, raise a hand. That's better.
Yeah, and then you can take the question and that person can unmute themselves. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, Zai is we can raise hand on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Zai has raised hand.
Please, Zai, go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I do have something to say about this novel. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I do need to say that this is the book that I read when I was a teenager. And I have to also say that this is the book which kind of motivated me to learn French. So
in CFL, and she was one of our. And now Zai is doing her PhD. Yes, in UCLA.
Why don't you put your video on?
Zai?
Because it's quite early in the morning, so I'm just little. So anyway, just wanted to say that for me, it has been a transformative book because I had not read anything in French till then. It was the first thing I had read. I mean, something translated in Marathi. I did not know the language at all. And it actually motivated me to learn the language. So when people say that if book can change your life, this is the book that literally changed my life. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I was moved by the translation. And I had been fortunate enough to read this novel in French eventually and be the student of Professor Dhupkar. So thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Good.
Thank you.
Lovely.
I think Mangala has a question. Vidya?
May I ask?
What's the choice of language? Wonderful.
Mangala, you can't be heard.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. I was just wondering if in Marathi you have the kind of style that Flaubert has used, where he remains absent from his work, where he does not in any way appeal to the reader or to his feelings, that kind of impersonal style. Is it there in any Marathi literary work?
I won't be able to answer this.
Yeah, I mean, that way, yes, the translation is also as dispassionate. I mean, that way it reflects the style of Flaubert. That much we can see.
No, she's asking in Marathi, do we have authors like this?
Yes.
Authors like this. Oh.
That's my question. And also, I congratulate Jayant Dhupkar for having been able to really get the flavor of Flaubert's style in Marathi, which must have been a real gazure, something very difficult.
Thank you, thank you.
Was there any particular word, Professor Dhupkar, that you would like to tell us about? One word that you struggled for very long with, and then somehow found it. And if you found it, how did you find it?
I not in Madame Bovary, but then like I was telling you that looking for books, looking for words is an ongoing process, and that keeps on happening. I mean, I'll give you one of the examples of the word flambeau, and where our contemporary knowledge, contemporary awareness of the contemporary French that we know, and which we have to put to question systematically. The word flambeau is a very particular word. I mean, we use it in French commonly, and flambeau is mashal that you'll get in Marathi, something like that. But then later on, I remember that while visiting one of the museums in France, I discovered that flambeau is a type of bougie, menbatti, but a thicker one.
Oh.
And then when I came back to the text again, flambeau is used inside the house. Now, if you use the word mashal inside the house, that will not work because it's an open flame. It can work only if that is a menbatti, but a thicker menbatti. So flambeau, so it is bigger than the bougie. Because then it can be, and the typical in the church, you get thicker, as thick as that, with carvings on that, etc., etc. That's typical thing. This is not that sort of decorative bougie, but then an ordinary one, but a thicker one. So this is the discovery of meanings and discovery of words which kept on happening. Dictionaries don't give you, because you don't have patience of going through the dictionaries, but then this is what the reality of 19th century you have to discover. Same thing about the dresses. The elaborate words of the description of Emma's dress, for example, the layers that she's wearing, etc., etc. So these things are a continuous discovering the reality. I mean, I still, when I started teaching in the beginning in CFL, I was teaching, I don't remember which period, but then I came to 19th century, 18th and 19th century, and remained there for quite a long time. Then I discovered reading. I remember to have read all the authors, the Balzac completely, Stendhal completely, and all those, Hugo completely, Chateaubriand. There I started understanding the reality as it was. But once again, that was a very abstract reality, not the concrete reality. Then there is a whole series of books that we have, one day in the life of, that's where you get concrete objects like. So that was very important, where you realize that the world was like that. The people used to, what exactly happened in Jean Valjean's life, the way, what used to happen in Le Rouge et Noir, and so that's where the reality comes, the reality of 19th century. And the question comes out of this, Vidya's question earlier, out of this, how much is pertinent to the 20th century reader? If the 20th century reader is going to look into Madame Bovary only as a story of adulteress, and that's a very minor thing he's going to read. But then if he's going to understand, okay, this is the ambience in which Emma Bovary was going to feel suffocated, and then she's going to become the romantic person, and then she's going to get very unhappy with Charles Bovary. Then she's going to be unhappy with Leon, because his behavior is equally mediocre. Then of Rodolphe, who is going to be very selfish. And then she's going to try all sorts of things there. And we get successive examples of these people's failures. That's what anti-hero, that's what one of the things that we discovered in literature. But then we are not talking of literature. We are talking of one person's life. And when Flaubert was writing this so-called realistic novel, which is full of romantic ideas, and romantic person becoming into a very concrete, realistic, and very negative, unhappy, disappointed person committing suicide at the end. Okay, so this is what the Flaubert's plan is there. And this has to be understood in that way. After writing Madame Bovary, I realized that I should not teach Madame Bovary at all. I did not teach at all because the references to different coins, different of political situation, I realized that no student will be able to answer that question. Nobody had remembered the word Vansar because the Vansar is the fellow who is pulling the strings about Leroux's finances. And far away, and we don't see him in the novel. Only one paragraph, something like that. So this is what exactly Madame Bovary should be read as, but nobody reads it. So Nabokov was asking some of the questions we are very pertinent in his contemporary comparative literature courses. This is what exactly happens in India, in a place like CIFL, which is of course very important center of literature. Mangala, did I answer your question somewhere? Or was there a question or not?
Yeah, of course you did. You did. And I had another, but maybe I'll ask it later.
Well, are there any more questions? Anyone else who would like to ask a question?
Yeah, I had one question.
No, I'm just waiting for...
Otherwise, I'll ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else?
I would like to say something.
Yes, please go ahead.
I
don't... I don't have a question. But can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Sureka.
No, please go ahead, Sureka.
Okay, I don't have a question. I just have a heart full of pride for both Ujjwala and Jayant and Vidya, who have done a super job and given us a beautiful evening to think about, to reflect upon, and to go back to all those lovely days where I had all of you in front of me and reading Madame Bovary. Once again, I have now, Jayant, like you've got Zai into French because of your translation. I think I'm going to go back to reading Flaubert once again. So thank you all three of you have kept us really enthralled. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
Very nice.
Voilà.
Thank
There's
you.
somebody called Shama.
Shama had to say something, yeah.
Yes. Can I speak?
Please
can you hear me?
Please do.
Yeah.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for the lovely evening. Sir, I have read some parts of your book, the Marathi translation, and it was lovely reading it, but it's been some time since I read it. However, I do have a question. It's not related to the book, but it was mentioned that you've also translated La Peste. Where can I find the Marathi copy?
You contact what is his name? Padmagandha Prakashan.
Yeah, Arun Zakde.
Arun Zakde, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
He has published three books are already out. L'étranger, La Peste and L'Exil.
Me vicharu ka prashna. Can I
go ahead, Mangala, yes.
Yeah.
Mangala.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, how was a novel on adultery taken by the Maharashtrian people who read it? Because only recently there was that play Samudra based on a novel by, I forget the name of the author, and people didn't take to it very well because it was the woman's point of view.
Wasn't that a play?
It was a play, but it was a novel. I've got the novel with me. I've got the novel.
It was also made into a play later.
Yeah.
I've seen the play on stage. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't see the play, but I read the novel.
So, Jayant,
I've got it somewhere away. I'm looking for it.
Jayant, what do you have to say?
No, I have nothing to say about it because the book was well sold. I mean, I remember that.
Yeah.
But
any reactions of people?
See, I don't think that people reacted to the notion of adultery in that they must have reacted to the foreign, the 2-3 letters that came. Yes. They spoke mainly about the successful transfer of French literature to Marathi literature.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. It was a wonderful translation, I must say. But I was just wondering if there are at all any novels on adultery in Marathi literature.
There are, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you were asking me contemporary realistic novels.
Contemporary. Before that,
Uddhav Shedke, Pubha Bhave, all these people, they have written fabulously well about the sexuality and other aspects
Gauri
of
Deshpande and all these people also. Yeah.
Gauri Deshpande, I don't remember, but then Uddhav Sharkant's
Gauri,
Asghar was the one of the old
Gauri
things
Gauri.
which were quite well-known books.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
Uddhav
Yeah,
Sharkey,
yeah.
the one who wrote Chakra, for
Marathi
example.
writers are quite
Yeah, modernistic and
very realistic,
very
very
realistic.
modernistic, very broad-minded,
Yes.
and yeah.
Excellent. I could echo Surekha's words. This was a wonderful evening. Congratulations to all three of you, especially to Jayant.
Thank you.
Questions that you
So
want
if there aren't any more questions, can
I
we
think,
end up now?
I
Thank
want
you,
to say
Minal,
one thing
for
about
thinking
this.
about.
Jayant, you have something to say?
Minal, thank you for
Wait a minute.
getting these people together.
One or two things which
Jayant,
one or two things which I want to say is that this reminds me of. I mean, of course, I'm very happy to be once again associated with my two universities, which are very dear to me for various reasons. And that reminds me of one book when Professor Kelkar came to Hyderabad, when I joined Hyderabad, and that time his teacher, Charles Hockett, in Cornell, he had published Refurbishing Our Fundamentals. The book Refurbishing Our Fundamentals is what he calls in that book, what you call return gift to his students. Because his students, Chomsky, Ashok Kelkar, George Cordona, etc., gave a book to him as a Zeitschrift of his 60 years. And when Charles Hockett became 80, he replied to them by writing Refurbishing Our Fundamentals in Linguistics. That's one of fundamental. It's a beautiful book. Very jokes. I mean, Charles Hockett really wrote beautiful textbooks of linguistics. So this is my Guru Dakshina to Surekha, who is in the audience today, and this goes back to 1970, 71, when she had just joined the university.
70, yeah.
70, 71.
Yeah.
Something
71.
like that. And she tolerated to be in the class.
Absolutely.
And eventually encouraged me to do whatever I did.
Oh, come on.
Thank you, Surekha.
No,
And
it
Mangala
was
and Mangal.
for me also.
It was a
very good opportunity for me also
was
to
discovering. I was also
discover this
discovering
translation and to be able to interact and be on this platform. But I mean, I would have frankly preferred, had the whole conversation taken place either in French or in Marathi, because here we are talking about a book which is written in translated into Marathi, but we have to discuss it in English. And
but Ujjwala, that did strike me. That did
strike
me. But on the other hand, there are people who don't understand either Marathi or French to that extent, and they, it is a little odd that we should be carrying on this discussion in English in a third language. But then, in that sense, we are opening it up to a bigger audience, and I think we have achieved that purpose.
Bigger audience, absolutely.
Zai has something to say. Zai.
Sure.
So I just wanted to say one thing is that I'm actually glad that it's happening in English. One of the things I have realized after coming to the US and doing my PhD and writing my dissertation in English, when actually I'm writing about French literature, is that, a lot of times the medium, doesn't matter as much whether you write in French or English, because that's how US academics usually looks at it. For them, it's more important of what you have to say than in which language you're saying it. And also writing papers and dissertation in English means that you're also reaching larger audience. So I'm able to go to a conference where, people who don't read French at all, but they are still listening to what I have to say. So in that regard, I really appreciate this session being carried in English, even if it might sound a little odd, but we still could basically connect English, French, and Marathi together. So thank you.
I'm so glad you approve, because of course that thought had struck me. And I'm sure it did Vidya too, though we didn't discuss it. And so if there's nothing more that anyone wishes to say, I just want to propose a formal vote of thanks. Vidya, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that as translators, we build bridges. And the more bridges there are, the more people can go from that side to this side and from this side to that side. So every translation is most welcome. And I think even if the same translator was to redo his translation tomorrow, he'll do it differently. The way finally the publisher takes a call, he says, that's it, tomorrow you submit the manuscript, and we just submit it. And you call it the hand of destiny, you call it the hand of the publisher. So, I think it's like Ujjwala, I'm really glad I was invited to this. Thank you very much. But most importantly, I wish this discussion would continue on another platform, maybe by having a conference when this horrible COVID goes away. And we can talk about, Flambeau. I never knew this, Professor Dhupkar. Thanks to you, I know that there is this nuance to the word, or that Pangat and this thing that Ujjwala brought up, and that 43. I hadn't counted it as 43. But clearly, Ujjwala
No, I did not count. The text said it, please. I did not count.
No, but you noticed it. I had not noticed it. I had gone with Lac Lamartine. So you see, you thought of that, and that led to another one. I think it's been a very enriching discussion. I personally learned a lot. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
So I would like to thank all of you. It's been a wonderful and stimulating evening that we have spent together. Vidya, the idea and impetus for this program came from you. It was on your suggestion that we decided to have a collaborative program. So thank you very much. And Ujjwala, what a good conversationalist come interviewer you are. Because really, you have gone into the detail of the thing. You have asked probing questions. You have made some astute observations. You have really studied the text in detail in order to
the text,
part of this, isn't it?
Text. She has studied the text.
Yes. And
she has read them both.
Both very well. Yeah,
that's right. And within a month, because when I invited her to do this, she said, "Oh, I read the translation in Marathi long ago, so I don't know." But then she did her homework, and she's come out
very well
with
prepared.
9 colors. Very impressive, Ujjwala.
Very well prepared.
Finally, Jayant Dhupkar, I mean, what can one say about you? Really, we are at a loss for words, but I just want to say
that's good for translation.
Huh?
If you are at a loss of words, that's good for translation.
Dad, no rudeness from you, please. But I just want to say that, the quality of the translation depends on so many factors, and you have mastered them all. The knowledge of the translator of both the language, history, and culture of the initial language, and also the conception of the task of the translator. You have really examined, studied every little detail before you, came out with the word, with the le mot juste, the right word for it in Marathi. And of course, your ability to write well in the target language, that has left me astounded. Because when Ujjwala read the Marathi text, which is read very sweetly, if I may say so, Ujjwala, it sounded so good, your Marathi reading. So I just want to say, Jan, that you have left us awestruck and with all that has flowed out of you. And we, give our most hearty congratulations to you.
I second
full
that.
of admiration. Sometimes I wish I was a student again, and maybe I would be a student of Jayant Dhupkar's.
I was in CFL, but I was not his student, because when I went there, they had changed the system, and it had to be only in association with our topic. And so that we prior to our batch, everybody did everything, but we had limited coursework.
Okay. So
all in all, a lovely evening.
Grateful thanks also to the audience for their participation, for their contribution.
Especially when you
we are really happy that they had so much to say, so much to contribute. And as always, immense gratitude to Honorary Secretary Usha Vijayalakshmi, Dr. Usha Vijayalakshmi, for holding the fort on the technical front, because without her, an online program would just not be possible. And we're always running to her to say, Usha, you just have to be there. And she's always been there for us at the Asiatic Society. So thank you very much, Usha. I hope you're still there. But immense thanks are due to you.
Well
Bye.
done. Well done, everybody.
Ujjwala, you
Thank you.
held an audience of 41.
Bravo.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
there's
Hats
many
off
more,
to you.
Vidya.
There were 60,
Vidya.
70.
But there's
There
still
were- there-
41 right now. I mean,
Yes, but
how many?
we
to hold
started
41
out with
people-
we started out with many more. We started
but
out with
that
many
they're
more.
there, still 41 now. Full credit to the two of you. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Bravo.
All three of you.
Bravo,
Okay.
bravo.
All three of
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
Bravo,
you.
hein, tous les trois.
Bye.
Bravo.
Merci.
Et l'équipe
Merci,
de
merci beaucoup. Merci.
Okay,
Asiatic
So
et tout le
I'll leave
monde.
the
Hein.
meeting
Merci,
now.
Minal.
Yeah.
Yes,
thank
I
you.
think we can leave
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
So, bye. See you then.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank
Et,
you.
Jayant, come
Ah.
to Pune and meet us.
Sure, sure, sure,
Chalo
sure.
ye.
Yeah, yeah.
I also come.
Bhet. Ani bhet.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Ah.
Farida was there.
Okay.
She
Ah,
just-
Farida
All
was
the
there.
best. All the best. Minal, thank you, dear.
Bye.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
my
Bye.
dear. Thank you for being there
Very
with
nice.
us.
Bye.
Very nice. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye. Shall we all leave now? Okay. Usha? Vasant Dhupkar, is this a brother? Hello there. You're on mute. You can't respond.
Yeah, yeah. I'm his brother in Pune.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Jayashri?
He's my
Jayashri?
wife.
Okay. Hello there. Nice to meet you. Hi. Hi, I'm Meenal. Yeah.
Yes.
You can see my name there. Thank you.
I read this novel again.
Because of the talk. Right, right.
No. Recently, in January when I visited
Hyderabad.
Hyderabad, that time I read it again.
Okay. In Marathi or in French? Do you read
Marathi.
in Marathi?
I'm not sure.
I-
I don't know.
I'm afraid I've not read it in Marathi. That's too much of a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I am Maharashtrian, but I have not been reading literature in Marathi. And that's a huge loss, I know. It's a huge loss.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you for being there.
And she was very active while doing this translation also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Must have made many suggestions.
Yeah, yeah. She also read out the text, Marathi text time and again
Okay.
at that time.
All right. So shall we all leave now?
Okay.
Thank you. And
Okay,
bye-bye.
bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. See you.